We are now going to talk about Voip, which is a weird word because it's not actually a word, it's an acronym. So this stands for Voice over Internet Protocol. And sometimes VO is written as a lowercase, it doesn't massively matter how you write it. But the second half of this acronym, Internet Protocol, it's worth knowing what this is because it will help you understand it. So Internet Protocol is used to send information over the internet. It's basically a set of rules which every device which is using the internet has to adhere to make sure communication can happen without too many errors and mistakes. So really, voice over internet protocol, we're using the internet to send information which is voice information. So in other words, VoIP we use to allow you to make telephone calls over the internet. So really any audio streamed over the internet. So traditionally, right, you'd have a phone which would be connected to, say, telegraph poles in your street. Don't see as many of these anymore because partly because of VoIP, and VoIP we can, instead of connecting to the cables and going under, over telephone lines, we can instead connect phones to routers and other internet infrastructure, and we can send our calls over the internet as opposed to over the phone lines, which are not always as good. And the two examples the exam board give specifically are Skype and Link. Now, who knows when OCR wrote this, because Link hasn't been used in years. Link used to be effectively the old version of Skype, which was for business. Skype is quite well known. Nowadays, Microsoft, who used to own Link and Skype actually, have replaced Link with Teams. So Microsoft Teams we've talked about before, but that's what it's now called. Now, in theory at least, these programs allow you to make VoIP calls for free. So one of the advantages is instead of having to pay for your phone line, you can do it over the internet. If you're paying for internet, you can use VoIP applications for free. Although if you're buying a business product, usually there is some payment involved at some point. So we care at the moment about how we can use different tools to present information. So let's talk about that now. So Skype and Teams, or going back a few years to Link, allow you to use both audio and video calling. So an audio call is just a normal phone call, right? But in this case, over the internet. And video calling, the video component is not necessarily VoIP. The audio is as well, but they both use VoIP behind the scenes to an extent. This is Skype, I believe. Different people calling. This is quite a large call, a conference call really. But it's a video call with audio behind the scenes using VoIP. So what's really good about this medium, if we're going to evaluate it, is we can share information really quickly and directly with often our colleagues or clients, right? You can just, if you have some breaking news, instead of composing an email or putting it on a website or sending it via an intranet, you can just launch a call someone up on Skype or Teams and tell them straight away. Telling them directly is better than putting it on a different medium. And by nature, using an audio call is a targeted method because it's not public facing if you have to actually call up an individual or multiple people to share your information. And targeting is good when you are sharing private information and you want to limit who's going to receive that information. However, one issue is we're going to talk about different requirements in a future video, but obviously to be able to call someone up, you need to have the hardware, so things like a microphone and a webcam and a laptop to use. The software, like you need to have Skype and Teams installed, so the Voip software you need to have installed. Computers will often not have it by default. You have to actually go and buy it or install it. Sometimes it can be free, as I say. And you need to be connected to the internet, whereas a phone line is independent of the internet. To use VoIP, you need the internet to call someone. So a second concept, which has sort of been packaged with VoIP, maybe a tiny bit wrongly, is podcasts. So podcasts are spoken word audio files, which can be downloaded by a listener to listen. So just spoken word, usually no music, usually no video for sure, it's just audio. And to download it as opposed to it being streamed live to you, as a call effectively is. So VoIP may be used by the podcaster to actually record the podcast, although honestly VoIP can be quite low quality, so maybe not. And downloading it sort of uses similar stuff behind the scenes, but it's not quite VoIP. But anyway, so a podcast can be used to share information. Loads of podcasts nowadays are more and more popular. This is a section on Spotify for educational ones. And a podcast tends to be fairly long. First of all, you can have podcasts which are 5-10 minutes, but they usually are about an hour or maybe even a couple of hours in some cases. So usually quite long and usually many episodes, not just a one-off. Usually if you're going to make a podcast, you're going to produce lots of different episodes, often released, maybe every week. a bit like a TV show, but just audio only. So because they're often just one or two people speaking for a long period of time, usually unscripted, the style is quite relaxed and quite personal, which can be good, if you're trying to put across a not particularly serious message. A podcast might be a good medium, but if you're doing something quite important, then maybe it's not going to be massively professional, using a podcast to release this information. And usually you'll need to have some software to play the podcast, so that's a slight disadvantage, but that's true for VoIP as well, right? You need to have some software to actually play the podcast and listen to it.